we get a little private policy message up here, so have a read of it or dismiss it, and we'll start off. So Brendan, thanks very much for coming in there. I'm just going to unshare my screen, and anybody there, there's 3 little dots on your screen. If you want to click those beside Brendan's picture, or where you see BM, if you can't see his picture, it'll just make his picture, pick the option that says pin, and it makes his picture bigger than everybody else's, so you get a real good look at him. Brendan, firstly, thanks very much for joining us. Me and you met each other a couple of years ago on a course. I had the good pleasure of being in your company on and off for the guts of 12 months. And from those first meetings, you struck me as a person of great poise, presence, humility. And I personally was really intrigued about you and wanted to find out a little bit more. And since talking to you, somebody that carries the name of the Kaiser, which we'll talk a little bit later, there has to be something really about you that you're able to carry that name. Secondly, every mother and father in the country that has a daughter would be only delighted for their daughter to bring home somebody like Brendan Maher. He pretty much has got everything going for himself, and I'm very comfortable in saying that he's a very handsome man as well. So with all those compliments, Brendan, I think your microphone might be off. So if you can click on your microphone, and we'll jump into it.
I'm on there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, have you there, Brendan? Thank you.
All right. What an introduction.
We blow it out of the water early. We start nice and good. You got a haircut too, Brendan?
It's going to go downhill from here now, I think, after that introduction.
Who gave you the haircut?
My future brother-in-law is handy with an old hair clippers, Aoife's brother Sean, so he had a go at it. He didn't do a bad job, in fairness. I'm happy.
Nice and clean, like the young fellas.
Yeah, no, it was gone out of control, so I put my trust in him. I said, look, if it goes wrong, I'm not exactly going too far at the moment. So, exactly. But no, look, thanks for having me. As you said there, we met each other back in 2017, and the feeling was mutual. I obviously got on very well with you and was intrigued to get to know you a bit better. So I'm glad to have had that experience.
So Brendan, I just want to start off. I start all these interviews by just a little bit of background from you were born. Where were you born? Have you always been Tip? And just your early years up until early primary school years.
So born in Tip, born and raised in Tip, a place called Borrisoleigh. It's I suppose a small town, big village is the way we'd always describe it. And went to school in a place called Fantan, which is like a townsland in Borrisoleigh. 2-teacher school. There was, I'd say, 41, 42 max in the whole school. So I had that kind of typical rural small school upbringing. I'm the youngest of 4 boys, and there's 7 years between myself and the next fella up from me. So with Martin, Declan and Sean, there's 2 and 3 years between them, and then there was a gap of 7 years. So I was a surprise package, let's say, / mistake, 7 years after Martin arrived.
As opposed to brought up.
Well, yeah, no, an admitted mistake. My mother has admitted, yes, I was a mistake, but they were happy enough. They said a happy mistake, as it turns out. But I always get slagged about that from the lads. So, yeah, I suppose with a house with 4 boys in it, you can imagine now the upbringing I had, and being the youngest of that 4. So it was kind of, you kind of had to earn your salt, and you didn't get away with much. And I think they kind of resented me a little bit because there was such a gap. I was the real pet growing up. So by the time I was, 4 or 5 years of age, Martin was 12 and the lads were teenagers. So I was getting the VIP treatment at home and getting everything my own way. And the lads were slaving away there trying to get through secondary school. So I think they kind of resented me for that. And they still slag me about it, that I'm the pet.
I'm sure there's a lot of truth in it as well. Brendan, tell me a little bit about the friends that so obviously a small school. When you started in junior infants, you were in with junior, senior, first and second. So again, dealing with a lot of kids that would have been older than you. So talk to me a little bit about your friends from back then.
Yeah, some great friends even still from primary school. One would have been a cousin of mine, Paul Maher. Like we had 6 in our class. We actually had quite a large class. 7. Sorry, excuse me. We had 7 in our class. And that would have been a large class, like, as it was going. We had some classes with one, we had some with 2 or 3. So we had decent numbers. And most of them actually are still local, with the exception of one of the lads. He's moved away. Sorry, 2. And Paul being one of them, a cousin of mine. He moved over to Australia. We went over together in 2010. I went travelling for a few months after the All-Ireland in 2010, and he came over and he decided to stay, and he hasn't come back. But the rest of the lads are around local, and a few of the girls as well, and we're still in contact with each other. And it's gas, like, you kind of have that bond, even though we wouldn't be close. A few of us, I wouldn't be close with them, but you still always have that bond for primary school, as you know yourself. Like, it's a kind of a special bond, a bit like you get in the GAA. In a small, tight-knit primary school like that, you knew everyone so well, and you were so close to each other like that. It just lasts a lifetime. And I think what you mentioned there about, being used to kind of mixing with older children initially from the off, I think that actually benefited me. I think we matured an awful lot quicker probably than we would have if we were in a bigger school, because we had to do things like, as a first or second class child, I was playing, with the 6th class children in sport, and I was doing all the activities around the school with the big boys, as you call them, in primary school. So that's something that is funny now as you mention it, because I wouldn't really reflect on that too much, but it's definitely something that I think stood to us all, having that kind of, schooling. And
Brendan, sports you were interested in that early age?
Sure. Look, I mean, our house was full of hurling. Sean would have started off, and by the time I was old enough to realise what was going on, he was playing with, North Tip squads, and Tip would have been kind of on the Tip minors and Tip 21s as we grew up. So hurling was always number one in the house. But we would have played a good bit of football as well, underage in the club. I played a lot of soccer with a local club here, Templemore, so they're kind of neighbours of ours here in Tip. And that was, I learned an awful lot from that, because it was my first experience of going out of my comfort zone in terms of playing with lads that I didn't know. I still remember that experience. Like, so I was still only in 5th class, I think, when I started playing under 12 soccer at Templemore, and just the whole experience of being a country boy, I would say, like going into Templemore, the town, and you were dealing with some tough customers in there, but it was good. It was a and I learned a good bit, and I think I learned a bit about the game, and I even brought elements of soccer into GAA then as well. Like, just I used to play in the field, like, so spatial awareness and all that was obviously very important, so transferred that back into hurling. And then I kind of made the call to step away from the serious soccer stuff at around 14, because I was starting to hurl minor with the club, and I was after getting on divisional teams, and was after playing Tony Forrest with Tip, and I just kind of had that grow to like focus on hurling at that stage. Did go back and play soccer intermittently for the following 8-9 years, but hurling became number one around that stage.
And schoolboy, as you were getting on in primary school, when, like, obviously you said a small school, when did you start playing on the schoolboy team?
At primary school?
Yeah.
Sure. I'd say first class or second class I was playing, like, because our numbers were so low, like.
Yeah.
Because we were actually only talking about, we came across a photo the other day, and one of the lads sent it on to me. I started playing on the under 10 team. There was no under 6s or under 8s back then, and I played on the under 10 team when I was 5. That was my first getting goal. So I was just thrown in, typical, like, just didn't have the numbers. Yeah, bring on Brendan there, he'll be grand. And goals, and that was my first introduction to hurling.
You weren't tempted to stay in the sticks, no?
I did. I would believe I played in goals when I was under 21. I was 15, and they played me in goals under 21 as well for a year. And I actually became the sub goalie for the seniors that year then as well. So that was 2004. That would have been. So I was 15, and they drafted me in to be the sub goalie as the seniors, but I ended up coming on out the field then in one of the games, like. And the following year, then I started starting, I suppose, on the senior team as a 16-year-old.
And just touching on that, Brendan, like, obviously, you're saying playing adult hurling at 15, so an under 17 now can't play adult hurling. Is that an issue with Boris, or is it, local teams around Tip?
There's definitely cases where, there's probably players that are strong enough and good enough to play it. But I think there's a case, obviously, then to mind our players as well, and just to kind of prevent that bit of burnout and the pressure as well that comes with trying to play senior hurling as well, or senior football. Like I can remember, I have a memory of. Now this is more personal, but the first North final I played in, I was started corner forward, and my brother got dropped. My brother Sean got dropped for me, more or less. And I can remember just being absolutely traumatized over the fact that I was after taking my brother's place, like, and I didn't want
manager.
And I was just too young. I was too young to be dealing with that kind of, emotions. Like, I can remember, I remember just like saying, I'm not going to play. I'll tell him I don't want to play, and you'll get your place back, kind of thing. But yeah, so
I didn't want to hear that either.
No. But it's a strange one. Look, we had two lads now that came onto our team this year as 18-year-olds, I would say, but they would have been good enough last year as well, So I think it's one of those ones where you'll definitely have people who are for it, but then overall, as a whole, do we need to be there? So I think the bigger picture is the way to look at
it. Yeah. Take me into secondary school, Brendan. Where did you go?
We have a secondary school here in Borrisoleigh, St. Joseph's College. And it had about, when I started in the school, you had about 500 students, I think. So it was decent enough. And the numbers dropped kind of for a while after kind of started going down, and ended up down as low as 240 or 50. But during my time there, we had somewhere between 400 and 500. And wasn't really known as a sports school, but the fact that it was in Borrisoleigh with a proud kind of tradition of sport here, we had decent teams. We were kind of competing in B competitions most of the time. But we were fairly successful. We won a couple of Munster finals in the B competition, and we had a couple of very good teams, and we competed in Harty for a few years, which is, is the A competition down here. And did very well, got to quarter final one year, shocked Coleman's, who were the powerhouse at the time, from Cork, in a last round game or something to go through, and we caused a few upsets. So we did have decent enough teams, but it wouldn't be anything like the scale of your Thurles CBS or Our Ladies in Templemore or Nina CBS. They're the real kind of sports schools, I suppose, and even Clonmel and Cashel now. But Borris wasn't ever known for sport, but always held their own.
And then your studies, Brendan, were you naturally clever? Did you have to work hard? Had you direction going through the Leaving Cert, what you were going to be?
Yeah, I suppose this will sound a bit arrogant now, but I was naturally clever and didn't really make much of it. Not that I didn't make much of an effort. I always did enough. If that, I did homework and did enough to keep the teachers kind of off my back. But an issue I did have during secondary school was I was on. In second year, I was on every team in the school bar the first year team. So I was playing football, hurling, rugby, everything in the school. And sure, you can imagine the amount of classes I was missing because of that. So I phone calls coming home to the mother, like saying he's going to fail his junior cert if he carries this crack on, and then he won't even get past the Leaving Cert, if this is going to be the pattern he's following. So I had a bit of a battle there with some teachers, and I can remember actually a teacher failing me in the mocks in junior cert in English, and I challenged her over. I remember in class, I was like, that definitely wasn't. She gave me 30% or something like that, and I had always been good at English, and she had some comment about if you turn up to class, you get a better mark. I think I give it back to her. At the time was over the school, all the school teams. He was over the hurling team. And I said something like, I go after her husband why I'm not making class, and he'll start thing. So that didn't go down well. So the relationship with that teacher wasn't exactly the best going through school, but I still got a good mark. I got a good, I think I got a B1 or B2 in English in honours in the Leaving Cert. So whether what she was doing worked or I just kind of managed, I don't know which it was.
You'd be in fair bother if you were doing the Leaving Cert this year and you were relying on her to mark you.
Oh, stop. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't be passing it. Simple as.
And just doing the Leaving, did you know doing it what you wanted to do, or did you stumble across it, and then just take me into college life?
Yeah, I was quite unsure about what I wanted to do. I was quite good at tech drawing and construction, so they were kind of on my mark. Like I was kind of looking at my brother Martin had gone into construction tech drawn teaching, and I was kind of thinking, you know, I'll follow that route now, construction tech drawn teaching. And at the time, then there was just a little bit of a shortage of jobs in that sector. So then I was looking at maybe quantity surveying. That was another one that I was in for. And again, construction. If you think at the time that was 2006. It was kind of coming towards the end of that boom, and things were about to hit the fan. So I was advised, like, you know, maybe it might be best to stay away from construction industry. And I had music and sport and all these things, so it was suggested to me, why don't you go down the route of teaching and primary teaching? So I kind of just put that down. I put that down as number one, and the CEO, and I had QS, I think, as second, or construction teaching maybe second, and QS third. And I was happy. I was happy to get to the primary teaching. I got whatever it was, 480 points or something, and got into the course. It was 465 or 470 at the time, and that took me to Maher in Limerick to study primary teaching.
And you just mentioned music there. What's your instrument of choice?
I'm looking at a guitar hanging up in the wall here now at the moment. That's the instrument of choice at the moment. But would have started out playing the banjo, so I played a lot of traditional music growing up, and then decided to learn the guitar. My father plays the guitar. My father and two brothers are in two different wedding bands, so they're full of music as well, and so it's always been a part of our household. And I decided, I learned the guitar, so taught myself the guitar and picked it up from my father, and then decided I wanted to play the drums as well, so I bought myself a drum kit and played that. God, now I haven't played them in a while, but I used to fill in a little bit with both bands. If their drummer was caught here a night, I'd be the man to fill in. So I really enjoy music, and it's a nice kind of an outlet when you're so heavily involved in sport. It's kind of my way of, you know, a release when you're not going out socialising or drinking with lads. It's a nice way to go out and just relax.
Yeah, and anyone that was tuned in early, that last tune, Bees Wings, that was one of Brendan's choices there. Can you carry a tune yourself?
I can, yeah. I'm not going to carry one now, but
yeah.
Give me a few drinks, I might. But no, I can, all right. Yeah, I'd always be the man now. I'll have me a few party pieces that I'll dish out there on a night out.
Weekend away with the lads.
What's that?
Weekend away with the lads.
Yeah, no, I was actually something I struggled to get used to, was singing sober. You know what, everyone now they have that song and when they have a few drinks down, but I remember the first night I actually had to sing, because I was playing music with the lads quite a bit, and they were kind of on to me, why won't you sing a few songs? Like, I just didn't have the confidence to do it, like, but eventually started a few nights here or there, I'd sing the song, and now I don't mind. I just kind of built up a bit of confidence with it now. So if I'm asked, Aoife, my fiance's father, is heavily into music as well. So if I'm down in Listowel, and he plays regularly in John B. Keane's, down with Billy Keane and John B. Keane, so he'll always nab me up for a song or two, and I've had to do that many a time without any drink in me, so I'm well used to it now.
And what's your go-to number?
My go-to number is Walking in Memphis. That's my go-to number, and then I have a few. I'll
the Cher version.
Ed Sheeran, or what's the other ones that I go for? If I'm stuck, then I might go down the route of Wagon Wheel by Nathan Carter, his version, or something like that. I'm always trying to learn new songs, but I can never remember them when I'm out. So I learn them here at home in the sitting room, and I go out then and I might remember the first verse, and next thing is gone. So
the lads will always back you up.
I stick to the ones that I remember, no matter if I've drinking me or not, I'll remember them. So there's 2 or 3 of them.
Brendan, just take me through your early days with Borris. So you talked about Forrestal and that sort of stuff, and under 14 and playing very early on. What are some of your more memorable days with the club? I suppose leaving out the last 12 months for now.
We didn't have a huge amount of success growing up in terms of like under 10, under 12. It was kind of when we got to under 14, we started to win a few things. So won a under 14 county final. I remember that was my first kind of major medal to win. And would you believe I actually missed the county final? I was training with the Harty team we were hurling Harty at the time with Boris in the secondary school. I was only in second year. I was 14 years of age, and I was training with the Harty team on a Tuesday, maybe 10 days before the county final, under 14 county final, and I fell down heavily and broke my thumb. So I ended up in the cast for the county final. So I actually missed that county final, and that's still a memory that's kind of a negative one, we'll say, but we still won, so it was great. And the following year, then we won an under 16 county final, and that team kind of was the start of, for us, I suppose, was the start of any kind of a strong team that we had. Competed in minor county final and got to under 21 divisional finals, and we were always thereabouts, but we never really had a major amount of success. So like my first kind of real success at adult level was a senior medal at 16. That year I said that I started corner forward. So 2005 we won a North final with Borrisoleigh, and again in 2007 we won it. And I kind of thought then, starting out, I was on the senior team. I was finished with juvenile hurling, like, and I thought, sure, this is great. Now I'm with the big boys, and we'll win medals every year. But obviously, that's not the way it goes.
And who were you modelling yourself on at that early age, or looking up to?
I was I was lucky in that I looked up. I never really looked any further than my own brothers. I idolised them growing up. I think the age gap, obviously, and around the time of 90, from 96 onwards, Declan was on county minors and then went on and played with the 21s. Martin played with the minors and the 21s, and then actually went on and played with the seniors for a few years. So, obviously I was looking up to him and was mad watching what he was at. And my cousin Philip then would have been full back on the 2001 team that won the All-Ireland with Tip. So, though, like, Martin and Philip, I suppose, would have been the top of the pile of lads I was kind of modelling myself off. And anyone who's seen Martin playing, the two of us, we were very hard to distinguish on the pitch. We very kind of similar style of hurling. He struggled an awful lot with injury and ended up having to pull the plug from Tip in 2006. He dislocated his kneecap 5 times, I think. Just wouldn't stop popping out at him. So surgery wasn't going to help him. He had, just couldn't cope with the demands of the game. So got a few more years and played on and off with the club and had a couple of really good years. But it was just a shame. I suppose he really struggled with injury, as did Declan. So myself and Sean, the oldest fella, and myself were the ones who were quite lucky, I suppose, in terms of injury, apart from the major one I had. And
the lads didn't make it easy for you starting out in the backyard?
No, definitely not. No. So I often tell this story about, when you're going around to summer camps or going around to juvenile clubs and that, and they're going on about, like, what can you tell the boys and girls now about cracks in their weak side? And this is like a question you always get, like. And I always just tell the story, and I'm not making anything up. Like, it's as true as I'm sitting here. When I was younger, I used to hit it off my left all the time. So I think I'm right-handed. Like, I think it's a kind of a natural thing to push the ball, in hurling.
Scoop it, yeah.
Yeah, so I used to hit it off my left, and I was quite good off my left. And I suppose when you're young then and you see, God, I'm good off this side, you just stick with that, like, and you forget about the other side. So I was always onto the lads. Like, I wanted to play with the lads, to be always out in the backyard. And two cousins, Philip and Seamus, would be down. So the five of them would be out, and there'd be timber going everywhere. Like, it'd be just all out war out there, and they loved it. And of course, the idea of a young lad 7 years younger coming in, they'd have to mind me, like, they didn't want that happening, obviously. So I used to be annoying them and plaguing them, like, please let me play. And eventually, the way they used to do it was every so often they'd say, right, well, you're allowed into this game now for 15 minutes or whatever it is, but you can only hit the ball on your right side. That's the deal. So if I wanted to play, I had to hit the ball on my right side. Like, so sure, listen, there was tears and there was all sorts of giving out and crying, going back into mammy. They won't let me play unless I hit it on this side. And that went on for weeks and weeks. But sure, like anything, I suppose I was a bit stubborn then as well. So I wanted to prove to them that I could do it. So I used to go off practicing myself. So we've two sides to the house, like the main yard, but then there's a small area out the back of the house as well that I used to go out there and I'd be hitting the ball off the wall non-stop off my right side and trying to get better and better. And I'd plug up the courage then to go out to the boys and say, right, I'm ready. Come on, let me into the game. So that went on for a few years. And one of the lads like Philip and Seamus now would often tell the story, like they'd often be saying, oh, it wasn't long before he started running rings around us, like that I caught up with them and started showing them a thing or two.
It's a common, even Joe Canning tells a very similar story as well, that a lot of in the whole Portumna area, meeting up down at the field, and a lot of older lads, and that doesn't play out for everybody, but it obviously drives a willingness in certain individuals.
It does. Like, I had no choice. You just got no sympathy. Like, and it was either, knuckle down now and sort this out, or you can go in and sit down on your own. Like, so it was a bit of tough love, maybe it doesn't work with everyone. There's probably a balance to be found, but it definitely didn't do me any harm. And by the sounds of it, like, it's, it resonates with a lot of guys.
Yeah, just take me through the Tipperary journey. Maybe from sort of minor. Did you get many years at minor, under 21?
Yeah, so started at minor as an under 16 under Liam Sheedy. Actually, he would have brought me in. It was a knockout system back then, so we were beaten by Limerick in a Munster semi-final in Kilmallock. That was back in 2005. I had quite a good team, and that was actually the first year, which I believe it's the one thing I missed out on. I never got to play with Shane Long. He would have lit up the minor championship in 2004, and was still underage for 2005, but decided to make the move to soccer that year. So we definitely missed him, and we had a very good team, and got beaten by a pint by Limerick, who went on to win the All-Ireland actually that year. So that was my first year. The 2006 then, under Liam Sheedy again, we bet Galway in an All-Ireland final in 2006. So Joe Canning would have been their main man, and that was the first time Pádraig, Maher and Joe would have marked each other. So that was kind of like the marquee pairing that day. So we bet Galway.
They were going for what in a row at that stage?
Sorry, you're right, because Limerick got beaten by Galway that 2005 one, and they were going for 3, was it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but they were hotly tipped to beat us actually, and we bet them comfortably the same day. Now it was just everything kind of went our way. The following year, then I was captain of minors in 2007, and we got through the whole championship comfortably enough. Actually, won the All-Ireland again, and that was kind of, I suppose, the crop that went on to the seniors. Like the bulk of us would have been on that team. So Pádraig, Noel, Bonner, myself, Michael Cahill, Seamus Hennessy, we would have been the main players to come off that team.
And then call up to the senior panel?
Yeah, no, so that year, 2007, myself and Pádraig actually got called up to the under-21s as well as minors. So we were literally, it was mad what was going on. It would never happen now, but I can remember like training with the minors for a Munster semi-final, and then going up to Dr. Morris Park to get the end of the under-21 training, and finding out I was starting on the under-21 team after barely trained. I think we did 2 training sessions, and I ended up being starter cornerback against Cork down in Cork, and we got beaten after extra time actually in that, and that was not as well. So just had the one game that year, but it was a nice experience to be able to say you played under-21 while you were still minor as well. Following year then, 2008, we got beaten in All-Ireland by Kilkenny in 2008 in the under-21s, and got called into the seniors then at the end of 2008. So a batch of us got called up from that under-21 team together.
Brendan, I just want to touch on something there. You have made a load of teams 2 and 3 years, like county teams, 3 years underage. At any point, did you realise you were special? Because I'm not blowing you up the way I did at the beginning, but like, does that hit you at the time that, look, I really must be good here?
I suppose it does, but to be honest, I don't think it hit me enough in that I don't think I actually had the confidence of someone who was special. I probably, not that I was playing within myself, but like for a lot of years, I was a different player with Boris than I was with Tip. I used to take it so serious that I was very consistent with Tip, but just wasn't expressing myself the same way that I would with Boris. So like in club games, I was probably very well known, obviously around locally, like as being special, but wasn't really transferring it onto the pitch with Tip in the sense of doing kind of special things like. So I think I kind of struggled with that confidence. It's a massive jump to go from being a club player to being a main kind of county player, and it takes a bit of time to settle into, your own skin in that kind of a space,
Just take me into Tipperary now, and obviously you got 3 years as captain there. How did that come about, and what age were you when you had your first year?
As captain, or first year in the senior stuff?
Captain, yeah.
Captain, yeah. So I was made vice captain in 2013, so I would have been 24. And then 2014 was the first year. So I was 25, so I was still quite young, and we still had, we still had Owen Kelly, Larry Corbett, John O'Brien, these lads in the dressing room, Paul Curran. So it probably, again, I'm going to repeat myself here, but it took me a little bit of time to settle into that role as well. I can remember in the league, the first few games of the league, my performances were shocking, and I just had to have a chat with myself. I was trying to do everything and trying to help everyone and trying to make sure everyone was okay, but I wasn't actually looking after myself, and my performances suffered. So
there's no course you can take to be captain or vice captain. There's no course you can take to give you experience in that.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I did have that chat, and I was lucky it happened during the league, because, that could have went on an awful lot longer. It could have went on the whole year if I didn't, have that tough chat with myself and make those tough calls. I had to get a little bit more selfish and learn how to say no and all of that thing. When you get into a leadership position, if you start saying yes to everything and listening to everyone, you're just, you're never going to go in there. So I had that chat, and thankfully my performance improved. We had a decent year. That was the year, obviously, at Hawkeye, in Maher, with Bubbles at 3 at the end. I got beaten by a replay, but I was happy with my year. I had hurled very well in all the games and got an all-star at the end of the year, and I was kind of pleased like that. I hadn't overall, I'd been pleased that my performances were up to scratch, even though I'd been given that extra responsibility of being captain. So that rolled into 15 under Eamon O'Shea, and we were beaten in an All-Ireland semi-final by Galway by a point that year. So won the Munster final, so got to lift the Munster Cup in 15, which is a huge honour, obviously, against Waterford in Thurles. And I still have a nice photo of myself and my mother after that game, and that's still a fond memory I'll hold. And then 2016, Mick Ryan took over as manager, and I was full sure, new manager coming in, he'll want to change things up and freshen it up after the defeat against Galway. You're kind of thinking like, we need to recover a bit here, so he'll surely make changes. But in fairness to him, he didn't. He stuck with me as captain, and very grateful for him for that. And we obviously had a great year that year, won the Munster and All Ireland. So that was kind of a dream fulfilled, I suppose, to walk up the steps. Because anyone who wouldn't know Borrisoleigh, I'm now the 4th winning captain from Borrisoleigh. So we've quite a strong representation in terms of winning captains. So Bobby Ryan, Jimmy Finn, and Sean Kenny would be the other 3. So some lads might know or remember Bobby back in 89 and 91. 89 he was captain. And
just for that, obviously the 2 weeks leading into an All-Ireland final, I don't know if you had 2 or 3 weeks at the time, but that whole thing about pulling a speech together, and Irish and all the rest, how did that weigh on your shoulders?
Owen Kelly gave me a great piece of advice before it was before 2014 All-Ireland. Actually, he had the chat with me, and he said it was after we beat Cork in the semi-final. He came straight to me on the bus and he said, "Will you do me a favour?" He said, "Will you write that speech tomorrow morning and get it out of your head?" He said, "Give it to, I don't know, was it Hot Pint?" He said to give it to someone that's going to be there after the match that can just hand it to you. So he said, spend a bit of time tomorrow now going through it, be happy with it, and he said then just park it, because he didn't do it. He didn't do it before 2011 All Ireland or something. He said he remembers he didn't do it one of the years, and it played on his mind a bit, and he felt he subconsciously was thinking of it. So I did that, and I took his advice, and I did the same in 2016 after we beat Galway in the semi-final. Same thing, just wrote it down, and I gave it to the same man I'd given it to in 2014, and I said hopefully you'll be handing me that after. And I made a boo-boo actually in that speech. Then I had, first thing I wrote down, the Monday morning I wrote down like Mick and management team, to thank them. And that was actually the mistake I made. So I put them down first, because when I started the speech then on All-Ireland final day, I went and I looked and I was like, Mick, I'm not going to start with them. I leave them to last. So I said, I'll move on and I'll come back to them. But I never came back to them. So I just got caught with the whole emotion of it. And I was coming down halfway down the steps after, and I was like, oh, bollocks. Can I go back up and finish that off? And I went straight down to him. I was like, geez, lads, I'm sorry. Sure. The same fellas now, like you, Nick, and Declan Fannin and Conor Station, didn't bother them in the slightest, like, you know. So
lots of opportunities to thank them in the days and weeks after it.
I made sure every time I had a microphone, and there's a lot of speeches after an All-Ireland win like that. You have it at the banquet and the homecomings and all that. So any chance I got, I made sure that I mentioned making the lads.
Give it a good ramp. Yeah, so I just want to dig into, and we have a question coming in there from Paddy as well, but I just want to dig in on the managerial and coaching influences that you've had, and just how they've shaped you as a player.
So obviously, I think like anyone that grows up in a club, you'll have that club influencer who just has a special way about them, and you'll remember them, I suppose, no matter how many coaches or managers they play under. And that's for me a fella by the name of Jimmy Slattery here in Borrisoleigh, and Jimmy's actually quite sick at the moment, so it's, you know, we're all thinking of him. But he was a kind of fella that he was just obsessed with hurling and was ahead of his time in terms of drills and, you know, thinking of, well, what do we use in the game and how can we replicate that in drills. So he was a real, you know, he was a real visionary, I suppose, in that sense, where he was, you know, he was coming up with drills that, you know, I wasn't seeing anywhere as under 14, under 16. I had him the whole way up along. He was literally training every team in the juvenile club at one stage. You know, he was one of those fellas that was just down in the field every evening. So he'd be the main, I suppose, club influence I've had. And that follows on then, I suppose, more recently. Like, I've had some great managers at the club, but I'd have to say Johnny Kelly is right up there with probably the best that I've ever played under from a club point of view. Then in terms of Tip, I've been really lucky, I suppose, to come across some great men as well. And like, it's hard to separate, you know, who's better than the other. You always get asked that, like, who's a better manager, Liam Sheedy or Mick Ryan or Eamon O'Shea or this and that. And it's a very difficult answer to give, because some had strengths in certain areas and others had, you know, strengths in other areas. And it's all about, I suppose, for me, a management team can complement each other. So what was great about Liam and Eamon working together is Liam is the real motivator, and I suppose not a disciplinarian, but like, he's a real, like, good communicator in the sense of he'll manage people very well and he knows what people need in order to get the best out of themselves. Whereas Eamon then is your real coach. He's just like, sees things differently to everyone else, and he'll start talking to you about things on the pitch that you just will not think of. You know, he sees the world differently, really. You know, he's a really interesting person, and, you know, if anyone has ever got to meet him or listen to him, he's almost to the point where you'd say he's mad, you know, like that kind of way. Some lads would describe him and say, God, O'Shea is just mad, isn't he? But he's so different, and he'll never be topped. I don't think I'll ever play under anyone that will be his way, you know, or his style.
Fred, without knowing him, the biggest thing that speaks out to me is the fact that he can go back, having had the top job, he can go back and work under somebody else again, all for the love of Tipperary or hurling or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and that really comes out in him. Like, he's just so humble and modest. You know, he doesn't seek the limelight, or he doesn't need those pats in the back, because he genuinely just has a love for the game that's stronger than anything, and he wants to see the game played, you know, in a way that it should be played. And he always speaks to us about that. Like, he goes on about our talent and the skill that we possess. And he said, you're doing yourselves unjust if you don't play the game as it should be played with your skill levels that you have. So he wants us to do things at a level that can't be reached, you know, because he believes that we can do that. And that's the way he always pushes us. It's always about getting to a level that no one else can, you know, and he kind of tries to instill that belief into us that we can do this quicker if we really concentrate on this type of thing. We can do this quicker than anyone else can, and that's what's going to help us ultimately win All Irelands and Munster finals and whatever.
And when you say there about play the game the way it's supposed to be played, just in simple terms, what is that? How does that look?
It's with Eamon, it's all about moving the ball quickly, but with purpose. So, like he never want to see someone just hit the ball for the sake of it. It always it needs to be moved quick, and he always talks about moving that ball as quickly as possible and getting it into spaces. Like it doesn't have to be that perfect pass all the time. He talks about, for me, it's always talking to half back line or midfielders about you should be delivering a ball into a space where someone's going to be running onto it rather than looking up to hit it at someone. This kind of stuff, So he's big on when you look up and you see movement that you start trying to instill that predictive mindset of, well, when I hit the ball, where's he going to be? Rather than, he's in the corner there, I strike it at him. So that's what he always tries to instill on in terms of passing. It's always about hit it 5 yards left of him, hit it 10 meters right of him. You need to start working on that part of your game. Delivery of the ball is not about hitting it at a forward. It's about hitting it where he's going to be when the ball arrives, kind of thing. So.
And then how does that look in training? So what are the activities that he sets up? And
it's mad. It looks like there's no cones ever. He's unbelievable. And sometimes it's pure mayhem because he starts roaring at you to, okay, we'll set up 4 backmen here and 4 forwards over here. Go, go, go. And he'll expect it to be done. And sure, we're kind of saying, hey, we haven't a clue what you're talking about here with an explanation. But, that's what he does it on purpose because he wants to hand over that responsibility of figure this out yourselves, lads. You know what I'm talking about. I don't have to hold your hand so I know he mentions himself, like he said, look, there's no cones on a pitch for a game, so why should it be there for training? Now he realizes, and he's come around a bit on this, that there does have to be a certain element of structure for certain things to happen, but you'll never see that man carrying a set of cones. That's what I'm sure.
And what about Tommy and Dara then, and their influences there? Again, 2 lads that are very much in the background, not really seen and grabbing the limelight, but have been there for a number of years.
Asher, listen, Dara is still very young. Like I heard of Dara for a good number of years. Dara's only 3 years older than me, so or even 2 years. But so obviously he kind of has that relationship with a good few of us, as more of a friend nearly than an associate in a team or a coach or a manager. So, but in fairness to him, what he brings is he's a primary school principal and super organised. Always has sessions planned out, and he's well up to scratch in terms of technology and that as well. So he'll be using, he's able to use apps and videos and that to describe things to us. So he just brings a freshness, I suppose, that maybe like Liam or Eamon wouldn't have the focus on. Like Liam wouldn't be concentrating on that side of things, or either would Eamon. Eamon is just the man that wants to get in the pitch. In terms of Tommy, then Tommy brings huge energy and again organisation, but a huge motivator in the sense that he wants things to be done to perfection, and he's always just striving for that. He acknowledges and he realises that especially in the game of hurling, it's so dynamic like that, it'll never be perfect, but he's always searching for that, and he's always pushing us to strive for that. And if standards aren't up to scratch when you're around Tommy, you'll know all about
it. Brendan, I just want to touch on the hours leading into a Tipperary game. So not so much the travel, but if it's that 2 hours from a team meeting or the 90 minutes that you're in a changing room and how you play things out, how does that look?
We have a nice little routine, I suppose, in the sense that you're always together 3 hours plus before the game, because you're going to be eating. So, nutritionist point of view, they're always like, we have to eat our meal 3 hours before. So, it's always nice and relaxed. And lads have different ways of getting themselves in the zone. But for me, my kind of routine is about, I kind of use this in my head. It's a traffic light system. So, when I wake up the morning of the game, I'm still on green. I'm kind of nice and relaxed. I'm not really thinking about the game that much. When we get together then and start eating, I kind of change to amber, where the thoughts of what you're going to do start to come into your head, but you're still trying to hold them and just try and manage them a little bit to say, no, save your energy. you have a little think about something, and then it's back to just a chat and trying to relax as much as possible. And then into the dressing room, then it's red zone, it's fully on, you know, and we're ready to go. Like, so, you can use it the other way as well. You're probably thinking, should it not be red, amber, and green? But the green reflects relaxation more and just kind of be free. So, that's the way I use it, and it comes from. I think the Irish boxers had some form of it that some of them used to use it, so that's where I picked it up. But look, I mean, everyone is different, like, and it's hard for me to say like that's the way everyone approaches it, because some lads are wired from the moment they get up or even the day before. That's what works for them. So for me, I've just figured out over the years that when I'm nice and relaxed and not doing too much thinking, that's when I perform at my best. So you kind of have different lads like doing different things, you know, in the lead up. You'll have some lads that'll be pucking outside. They love to go out for their few pucks. Whether if we're in a hotel, they're out any sort of grass they can find, or out pucking around. I won't go near that crew. I like to, sometimes I might even lie off and go for a snooze. There'll be some of the older lads maybe, and that's maybe reflective of our age, that we like to get a little nap in before we get to the dressing room. So we're trying to save as much energy as possible. And other lads then will be getting strapped up and, you know, getting rubs and just trying to, you know, a lot of the time you're just trying to fill the time, like, and keep yourself occupied and not think about too much. And
then how does that differ to the Borris changing room?
The Borris changing room, then, it's hard to describe, particularly like this year with having the run that we had. Look, the only way I'll describe it is before the All-Ireland semi-final, we'd always have music on in the dressing room, and if you were to come in 5 minutes before we were due to go out, you'd think these lads are away with the fairies. They're not going to, you know, like, they're going to get absolutely hammered, or they're not tuned in at all. But that's what worked for us. We'd be singing and having the crack and slagging each other and messing. And then once the music stops, then Johnny Kelly and the lads and the selectors and that will come in and they'll have their few words. But the All-Ireland semi-final was just particularly calm and quiet, and it almost to the point where we kind of went, this isn't, you know, we should be some way more up for this, like, because I remember Johnny gave this big rousing speech and nobody really reacted to him. No, there was no big like, come on, let's go. It was kind of silence after it. I could see him looking, kind of going, what's wrong with you? And Sean McCormack, or one of our captains, he just looked around. He kind of said, I'll leave it to you now for the last word, like. And Sean kind of looked around and he says, he'd nothing to say, obviously, and he's a man of few words anyway. And he just said, sure, will we go out, lads? And someone kind of goes, yeah, come on. And we just trotted out, and that was it. Like, and that for me kind of just explains and epitomizes the way the group is. Just everyone was always ready, but never had to do the roaring and shout to show it.
Yeah. And did Johnny embrace that, or did he influence it? Was it there before he came, or he brought it to it?
He definitely brought an element of it, because he's a fierce calm. If you've ever heard him speak, like, he's very articulate, and he never roars, like, he never shouts at us in the dressing room, because he doesn't need to, because he's able to communicate so well. He'll just have you focusing on the right things. And, you know, there is times where he has raised his voice because he's had to, but his approach first and foremost is to just communicate a few clear messages, key messages that he wants to get across to the team. This is what I want you focused on, lads. Remember what we talked about. Bang, bang, bang. These are, you know, the three things. And then after that, then just go out and play and embrace the whole thing and express yourselves. And he'd only raise the voice then if things were going wrong and he felt like lads just needed that kick up the hole. And he wasn't afraid to do that either, you know. Like, he'd call lads out individually if they needed to be spoken to, or as a team, he might say, look, lads, you're not doing this. But it was never, you know, he was always great to show. He'd give you a genuine reason. Like, there was no such thing as him saying, lads, you're not working hard enough. He'd say, lads, you're not working hard enough. You've lost 9 out of 13 breaking balls. He'd have the stat for you, and you can't argue that then, you know. So he's a great way about him.
Brendan, I just want to touch a little bit on your human morals. What do you live by? What do you hold value in?
Look, I suppose I break it down to 3. I suppose like, I kind of have this thing about the 3 C's. So commitment, compassion, and cooperation. They're my 3 C's, and I kind of refer to them as my 3 core values. So I believe, I suppose I'm always belief in, no matter what you're doing, you have to be 100% committed. And if you decide to do something, no matter how big or small you see it as in your head, that you must commit to it 100%. And if you're not committed 100%, for me, you don't achieve what you want to achieve. So commitment is the first thing. Compassion, I suppose, comes into the my role, I suppose, as a teacher and trying to influence the next generation. And I care about other people. I like to see other people succeed. So I'm not one of those guys who wants to win at all costs and have nobody else have any success. I want to win, desperately want to win at all times. I'm really competitive, but I never begrudge anyone else for winning if they deserve it. Or, even some people might have it in the sense of like, even previous tip players that when they retire, they don't like to see the current tip teams having success. Like, you see so many examples of that. I hope to God I'm not like that now, and I don't think I ever will be, and I hope I don't, because I never want to be that bitter person who has no, empathy or has no compassion for, fellow players. Like, and cooperation. Then I just believe in team effort. When you're doing something together, you need to cooperate with each other. You don't have to love everyone, and you don't have to get on with everyone. But you need to respect them if you're doing something together, and you need to respect that we have a common goal here, and this is my approach, you might have your approach, but we need to make sure we're going in one direction.
Brendan, at this point in time, if you want to grab a drink there, I just want to flag with people, me and you talked for what was supposed to be 10 minutes the end of last week, and it turned out to be an hour and a half. These interviews have usually taken about 70 minutes. We're not going to be done in 70 minutes. If people need to disappear or whatever, we'll have the recording up on the website. That's more than fine. You can look back at whatever you missed. But I'm really intrigued. I enjoyed talking to Brendan, and I'll keep it going until Brendan hits the hang up button. So there's other things we want to get into. I want to dive into a little bit more of your personal life now. And you've mentioned that you're a teacher. So can you just give me, because you're not just a run-of-the-mill teacher, there's something a little bit special about what you do teach.
Yeah, and I suppose I'm not just a teacher. I have multiple things going on in my life at the moment, and as part of my whole life experience, and even the experience of doing a band program with yourself, just kind of open up my eyes to trying new things, and if you have things you want to explore, to go and explore them. So I'm teaching in Lockmore. I've been teaching in the autistic unit there since 2014. So work with 6 kids with autism, and they're now aged 9 to 11 or 9 to 12 actually. We had a boy had a birthday only a couple of weeks ago. So when you talk about life experiences and things that change your perspective and outlook on life, starting my work in that and back in 2014 was a major turning point, I suppose, or major changing point in my career or my life. You just start to see things, things we take for granted every day, living habits that are just such a struggle for someone with autism, and you just get a great understanding of things that we think are just, that should be just normal, and you should be able to just do that, and you see the struggle that they have. And I suppose it just gave me a different outlook on things, and even it just reflected on trying to be aware of other people and how everyone is so different, and just respecting that, and I would have been guilty when I was younger that I spoke there about, I thought everyone should be committed and everyone should do this, the right way. I had this idea of what the right way was. Whereas now, you start to see like that there's more than one way to do something. And while somebody mightn't, approach things the same way as me, they can still get the job done just as good or even better than me. So it's about acknowledging that and, realizing that we can have a common goal and we can do things differently but still end up in the same place. So that's a humbling experience. Every day you walk into that classroom, you just kind of you're grateful, I suppose, for a lot of the things that you might take for granted.
And I imagine no 2 days are the same in that environment. And when you have mums or dads coming into you dropping off their kids, I'm sure there's an element of a counsellor in you as well.
Yeah, like you're not just dealing with the kids, you're dealing with a team of professionals in the line of speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, psychologists. You have, back in the early years, you had early intervention teams that you were working with, parents and family members and all that. So it's a different job, being honest, than your mainstream teaching. And it's a very challenging job. And I do enjoy it, but I suppose it's tough to maintain full time. I was doing it full time for 3 years, and I just felt like I needed a break from it, so I took a career break, and I wanted to explore the business world a little bit more, so I did that, and I set up my own business then, and do some consultancy work, and decided I'm back job sharing. I just wanted to keep my foot in it, just wasn't ready to leave it. I was like, I still enjoy teaching. Like, I'd love to be able to do both, and thankfully I got the opportunity. Then my school principal rang me up last year and said, look, I know you have the new business up and running, or going to have it up and running, but there's a job sharing opportunity here for this school year. Would you be interested in it? So I teach on Mondays and Tuesdays, and every second Wednesday. So that's the way we have it split. So I know I have to keep my diary free Mondays and Tuesdays, and I'm managing fine. It's a challenge at times, but we'll see. Obviously, we're not even in school at the moment, so I don't know what the future holds. But for now, I was really enjoying it up until the shit hit the fan.
And Brendan, we were talking to Gary Sice, who's also a primary school teacher. He's 6th class, and he was just finding that the engagement of the kids was starting to fall off. But like, you're continuing a fairly comprehensive program dealing with your kids during the day, and it's going well.
Yeah, we're using Zoom quite a lot, so the parents are great. We can do one-to-one stuff via Zoom, and the kids are great. Like, I mean, technology, they're so up to date with it, and even, kids with autism can be just absolute whizzes on iPads and computers and that. So, yeah, we're doing activities there. So Monday mornings and Wednesday mornings now are my 2 mornings that I give to it. And we do different activities on Zoom, and even just getting the group together. We have a group Zoom on a Monday, just to have a chat and see how they're getting on, and just to keep that kind of connection there, because it is a very tough time, obviously, for all children. But you can, imagine a child that doesn't really have that social understanding of what's going on, and just trying to communicate to them that, we're not allowed to go to school, but we will be allowed to go back to school at some stage. We're not sure when that is. So now we're kind of saying it's September, but that's not guaranteed either. So you're trying to manage that, and it can be quite difficult to keep some of the children, I suppose, just at ease over the whole situation.
Yeah, and I have a friend who's involved in that space, and she has a company called Prepare Me, and they provide a lot of resources for kids like that to deal with challenging situations. And you were telling me about the Seesaw app that you use.
Yeah, it's great. So it's very handy for communication. Like, so we can message each other, but they can also put up videos of stuff they're doing, and we put up videos as well to show them different activities we're doing at home. And I was using it, even putting up skills videos for the whole school, and just little things like that. It's a nice little way to stay connected again. Just literally like a message, you'll get it through the Seesaw app. And obviously with GDPR, and with, like, there's just that whole thing. You don't want to be using your personal number to be dealing with work-related stuff. Like, you could be getting calls on weekends. So our principal is very much strong on that you don't use your personal number. We'll use the app, and it does work well.
And the business you've been talking about is a gym. You've opened your own gym there in Borris.
Yeah. So we opened up the end of September, start of October, 2019. So had a really good start and had great support locally and from the surrounding areas. And we only had the doors open 6 months, and we had to close them, unfortunately. But we're operating, we're migrating, I suppose, now online, and we're doing with daily workouts and coaching going on, PT and all that going online. So look, it's not the same obviously as having your doors open, but it's keeping the lads going. I have 3 instructors working with me, and they've been great, and they've adapted really well to it. And my partner Aoife is a physiotherapist and a Pilates instructor as well, and she's helping out doing a class on a Sunday morning for me. And everyone is kind of rolling in together and just keeping the good side out until we can open up again.
Yeah, and you mentioned Aoife there, and Gary again mentioned his sister last week, who was a nurse. And unfortunately, I didn't think of it at the time about thanking the frontline workers, but I don't want to miss this opportunity to thank Aoife and all our colleagues for all the work that they're doing at the minute, and really fighting a very difficult battle to keep us all safe. So if you could just pass on our thanks and appreciation to her as well. Just some life ambitions, Brendan. What's left in store for you?
Sure. Look, I mean, I'm lucky. I'm a house owner. I bought back in 2014, so that was, I suppose, one of the boxes ticked. But I would still have that life ambition to build my own house. So hopefully I'll get to do that. I'm engaged as of New Year's Eve, so I have to try and plan a wedding now as well. And we don't know what the story is with that. Between not knowing when hurling championships are going to be on and not knowing if a hotel can even hold a wedding, we've that one on the long finger, let's say. So that could be pushed out a while. But yeah, they're obviously two things that I want to get done in the immediate future. I'd love to have a family as well, and from a business point of view, I'd like to just make my own business a success, and make sure that runs smoothly. But I do have other ambitions of in the business world. As I said, I do some consultancy work, and I'd like to get into that space a little bit more now. It's just quite difficult while you're still hurling inter-county, and that it's quite difficult to do everything. So I suppose looking down the line when you retire, and that you would hope that other things can maybe you can focus a little bit more on other things. But it's not as if I'm putting it off, but it's just you have to have the right time for things, and I need to make decisions now that are right for me at present, and that's the way I'm kind of approaching things.
And you say consultancy, Brendan. I presume that's not accountancy or engineering.
No. So I was working. So I joined Teneos. They're actually our sponsors now. So back in September 2017. So worked full time with them and in their sports and sponsorship division. So basically like the commercial side of sport. So handling sponsorships, for example, Vodafone sponsor Ireland Rugby. So we'd handle a lot of the media events and even the hospitality at the day of the game, and getting players and getting guest players to do MC and guest speaking at events for Vodafone. And it's a lot of account management, but then you're also looking at the creative side of how do we activate this sponsorship that will resonate with the public. So you're trying to help the brand get bang for their buck for their sponsorship deal as well. So that was a lot of what I did, and did some other stuff then around leadership and strategy, and that's kind of where I'd like to stay, I suppose. And it's really enjoyable, and it was a completely different space for me at the time, having taught just being a teacher up until then, and then getting into that whole business space. And it was a tough changeover, or it was a tough kind of 3-4 months to actually adapt into that new environment, but it was one I really enjoyed. And it's nice to be able to dip in and out of it now as well, and still be able to set up my own business. So I've a number of things on the go, but I'm enjoying it.
And it's a space that a lot of the ex-professional rugby players are dipping into, and it's probably an area that the GAA in general and the GPA are always looking at as regards to when the boots are hung up by choice or taken out of your hands through injury, that somebody actually has a career to fall back on and be able to sustain a living. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. And look, I suppose the one thing that I was a bit naive to was that I had so many strengths that could be applicable to that type of business. And like things I learned about performance, it was all related on the pitch, but it's all transferable. The principles of sport are the same. The principles of business are the very same. You have to formulate a plan and set goals and activate it and execute it. So I had an awful lot more to bring to it, I suppose, than I realized. And it was only when I started doing it then that I kind of realized, God, yeah, like I have a lot to offer in this space. And it really just kind of kicked me on to start up my own business, and I suppose not to take more risks, but to make decisions that I feel are right rather than go for the safe option all the time.
Brendan, I just want to touch. Sorry, I just lost you there for a second. I just want to touch a little bit on your social life, and when you're out and about on the street and a very recognizable person, and a welcoming face, and people coming up to you, how difficult is all of that for Aoife and your mum and dad and parents sitting in the stand when games are going on and maybe things are not going that well for you?
Yeah, it's something I suppose that as a player, the stuff in the stands you don't realise it's happening, I suppose. So it's easy for a player to deal with it, but then when you hear stories or hear things that have been said, obviously it doesn't sit well, and it's hard for parents and brothers and family members and friends to hear others talk about you or say, negative things about you. But you get used to it because you start to realise like what matters in all of this. And, we always talk about your close kind of support will be there no matter what. And then you'll have, the supporters they'll pat you in the back, but they'll kick you up the hole just as quick then, So that's kind of something that you learn a bit over time. And that's what we try and pass on to the younger lads joining the panel, to kind of say, look, you need to get used to it. You're going to be in the spotlight a little bit more. You're going to be criticised a little bit more, and you start to see your name on newspapers and all that kind of stuff, and people talking about you in the media and talking about you on the Sunday game or whatever it is. And it's not always positive. It's never going to be always positive. So you just have to realise that it exists, and it doesn't. Not that it doesn't matter, because it's part of the sport, but that you shouldn't be focusing in on it, and you should surround yourself with a positive kind of support network. That's the one thing that has always stood to me. The challenge though then is there where, like, socially, you mentioned social life, like going out on a night out, if myself and Aoife are going out, like sometimes it can be a bit frustrating, like where if people kind of coming up interrupting you a lot, just wanting a chat or photo or that now. And it's not as if I'm exactly famous or anything, but I suppose I have a recognisable face, I suppose, down around these parts anyway. So it does happen a good bit if we're out for a night where you'll have people coming up, and it does get on Aoife's nerves a lot of the time. But she always says to me I'm way too nice, like, because I'll talk back, like, and try to talk for Ireland, and like she'd be always saying, why don't you just tell them to shut up, like we're trying to enjoy our night out or F off or whatever it is. But no, I just can't bring myself to do that. But yeah, because it's a hard one, because you can't please everyone. Like, if you were to be ignorant then and try and prioritize like having a night out with your close friends, you'll have people giving out about you, and that might bother you. Then obviously if you give them too much time, you have Aoife and your friends giving out to you. So it's a hard one to balance.
Yeah, when you tell someone to F off or treat them disrespectfully, mightn't even be disrespectfully, but that news travels a lot further than you standing with somebody for an hour and them slobbering in your ear.
Exactly. And look, and Aoife is great. She understands that you're nearly like a politician at times. Like, you just have to play ball the odd time just to be civil. And I suppose we kind of have a responsibility. Like, people are mad to pick your brain a lot of time, but I would maybe challenge and say like that when you have 10 pints and 2 vodkas down you, it's not the time you want to be trying to pick a player's brain. But like, you do have to acknowledge that it is part of it. Like, people just want to have a chat with you and be able to say they had a chat with you and go back to their friends and say like, oh, I met this fella, I met such and such. Like, I'm a fan as well, and if I met a rugby player, like, so there's, I've met through work, like I've met Brian O'Driscoll and Gary Ringrose and a good few of the rugby lads, and I'd be always mad to tell the boys like back home then, like, oh geez, I met Brian O'Driscoll, like, he's a fair sound fella. Like, so it's the same thing, maybe on a smaller scale for GAA players, and we just need to realise that, like, it's no harm to be nice, like, and I'll always try and be nice to people, but it does get your nerves at times, like when you're trying to get a night out.
How do you give back to your family, Brendan, and give back to Aoife, and how do you get time for that?
Yeah, it's like, I suppose we're not like soccer players where we can buy them houses or cars or like that traction, but we're definitely not in that situation. No, I think, like, I like to prioritize my time. I don't have a lot of free time when you're training and working, so I suppose I try and balance it that, like, my friends, I suppose, suffer a lot, where I suffer. You could look at it both ways, but I miss out on an awful lot of social kind of things with my friends because I prioritize whether it's going out for dinner with Aoife or just spending time at home just to chill out, instead of going down to the park for a while or going down to the pub to meet the lads for a few hours or whatever it is. So I try and prioritize the things that are important to you. And for me, family is massively important. So, we do little things like we'll have dinner on a Sunday out at home where we try and get the family together, and I'm sure lots of families do that. And I'm lucky, like, to have a really strong family around me and to have that good support network, and have some really good friends as well. And it's not as if I have a massive amount of friends, but the ones I do have they understand me, and they understand I have to be a certain way while we're in the middle of championship or in the middle of preparing for something. They know they're not going to see me like down the pub or down around for certain things. Like, they just know that's just part of it, and they're used to it. But they'll never, they'll slag me the odd time, but they'll never begrudge you, I suppose, for prioritising your own kind of performance and your own preparation.
And Brendan, you've talked a little bit about promotional activity and that sort of stuff. What would you not be prepared to put your name to?
I kind of have my stance on this, like, is I won't put my name to something that I don't have a deep knowledge of, I suppose, or that I feel doesn't give off the right impression for what I kind of stand for. So an example would be, I can remember getting an offer to do something for a bar of chocolate before a few years ago. It was a new bar of chocolate that was coming out. They wanted me to do kind of social media stuff and do videos. And I said, you know what, I'm in the gym kind of and health and fitness space, and I'm obviously a GAA player. I don't want to be giving off that message like that. You should be going to the shop to buy a bar of chocolate. So that's one example. And another one, and I don't not have an interest in it, but I just don't have a knowledge of it. It was one with horse race in Ireland. They were doing something, and I was asked to do it, and I just kind of said, you know what, I don't have a clue about horses. I'd watched the main races, and I had the odd bet in Cheltenham at different years, but like I'm not into it. You know what I mean? I don't have an interest in it. So I said, you know what, I don't have an interest in this, so I'm just going to stay clear. So it's like, for me, I just kind of like to promote. Like, I work with the National Dairy Council. For me, that was a good positive one to work on. We were promoting, milk and the benefits of dairy, because I really believe in the benefits of dairy. So that was one I was delighted to do it, and you'll do other ones there with companies that don't really have that influence on society. It's not food or addiction related, or, so they're fine. But when you kind of pass into that territory, that's when I'll kind of pick and choose it.
And Brendan, we've talked about a lot of the good times, but obviously you've had your own struggles with injuries as well. Can you fill us in on some of those tough years?
Like, I missed a few games in 2011 with a broken bone in my ankle. So that was a tough one. I had damaged it in a league game. I damaged ligaments, and the ankle was kind of on the way out. And then at home one day, simple roll of the ankle. I thought nothing was wrong with it. I went into training. I remember going into training. I was able to walk on it at the time, but it just got really swollen. And the physio was like, just something not right there. So we got the x-rayed, and sure enough, the non-weight bearing bone at the bottom of the ankle was broken. So I ended up being out for 10, 12 weeks, so not even 3 months, which wasn't really that the length of it, it was just the timing of it. So it was right at the end of the league. So I ended up missing more or less the Munster Championship. I got back on the pitch as a sub in the Munster final. And that's one year, I suppose, that would bug me a little bit, in the sense that I thought I was back hurling well enough to start in the semi-final and the final. But came on at half-time, the semi-final, and came on after 20 minutes, like, in the final. Which kind of shows, maybe, or reflects how the thing was going. I probably, I felt I should have been starting. I've been hurling well enough, and that was kind of one year, I suppose, that I felt a little bit hard done by. And then outside of that, I had lots of trouble, like little minor injuries and that, but nothing that ever ruled me out of any game. I never missed any game following that with any injury. Got lots of injuries, did both shoulders, AC joints and that kind of thing, but never missed a game. And then obviously in 2018 then did the ACL. So that was thankfully the only major injury I've gotten, like a long-term injury, and obviously that's kind of well documented. And
Brendan, just as regards a player, how are you still learning? How are you still developing your game? What sources are you using?
Like fellow players, you watch lads doing different things or working on different things, and just even having conversations with lads. So like, I like having conversations with forwards and trying to figure out what their line of thinking is, so that I can try and predict it then as a backman. I talk a lot to, obviously I'm very close to Shane McCanlon, like, and I'm always interested to see what way he views it, because if I'm playing centre back or if I'm playing wing back, even a lot of the time your play involves running back over, ball goes over your head, and you're trying to predict where it's going to go or what movement the full forward line are going to have. So I like to kind of talk to those lads about what they're doing, so that I have a knowledge of what's going on behind me. And then as talking to half forwards around what don't you like under puckouts, and you're always trying to figure out like what are you trying now that I need to be aware of, or you'll watch other players on opposing teams and see are they doing anything in particular. Like I remember one that stands out would have been Broad Hegarty and how effective he was with puckouts, and Tom Morrissey, what they were doing. And I can remember playing against the first time and thinking, yeah, like I can see why this is working. Like it's very hard to deal with. And just, you're always kind of looking at what other teams are doing and seeing like, well, how can we counteract that? Because obviously as a defender, a lot of the time you're trying to counteract what another team is doing. And obviously from a forward point of view, you're trying to bring new elements to your game to make yourself as unpredictable as possible.
So obviously you were on the GPA podcast, and the whole story of Gort and the little lad in your hurl has caught the papers over the last couple of days. But I want to take a little different angle to it. So in the moments before striking that ball, you realised your hurl was broke.
Yeah, it was broke from the free. So I struck a free on the 21 and felt a break while I was striking. So I looked down, realised, and I started calling for the hurley at that stage. And I was kind of running out towards the sideline and I was waving and I couldn't see anyone coming with a hurley. So the ball was being poked out at that stage then. So I decided, right, sure, look, I had half of the boss, like, or even a little bit more. And I used quite a big boss, so like it wasn't as if I was just left with a little stick or a little twig, like. So I decided, look, sure, I'll go in and I'll try and get a block down at least. I didn't expect to be in a situation where I'd have to hit the ball, to be honest. I just thought I'd get myself in the way here and try and delay the ball going up the field a little bit. So I felt I got a half block on the ball being struck out, and Jack Hogan got the ball for us, and he didn't realise my hurley was broke, because we spoke about it afterwards, and he said he wouldn't have given me the ball if he realised that my hurley was broke, but he hand passed the ball in towards me. I can remember my thought process was like I put the hurley out and got a touch on the ball up into my hand, so I thought, well, if you're after getting the touch, there's enough there to strike the ball. That was kind of what was in my head. So I just turned, I kind of just a natural movement, I suppose, and just had a go at it then at that stage. And it's just one of those ones, a bit of a hit and hope, and thankfully that went over.
And how does that feel through your hands when you strike that? Did you know instantly that's like a real clean strike, or just the sweet spot was still there in the hurl, so losing the toe of it was irrelevant?
It hit it. I hit it because it was obviously lighter, so the strike was a bit quicker than normal. So it wasn't the sweetest of connections, but it went higher than normal. So I think I hit it in a way that I took the spin out of it. Normally when you're striking a ball for a point, like you're kind of hitting down on the ball, so it's almost like you're hitting a bit of a backspin on the ball, hitting through it. So I remember swinging, like thinking you need to hit this one up and take out that kind of a spin effect, like. So I kind of hit the ball up more so than striking at it, if that makes sense. So that was kind of the only way I could think, like, this is my only chance of hitting the ball properly, is if I hit it up like that and not try and.
Yeah, it's amazing, really, the thought process of all of that, from the ball touch your hurl on the touch to get it into your hand, that you realise, I can make a swing from a really difficult angle here with pressure coming from behind and get a score at a crucial time in the game.
Yeah, like, and it's just one of those things, like you make those split decisions all the time in matches. Like, and hurling is so quick, and you have to make those decisions so quickly. Sometimes, they go wrong, and you work off your instinct an awful lot. My instinct just told me to do those things at the time, and it worked out.
Brendan, just touch quickly on the nicknames in the tip panel, and then more so the Boris panel, because I hear there's a lot of them.
The ones on the tip panel, I suppose, are very well known. The likes of Bubbles and Bonner are well known there, and Willie Connor.
Do you know the origin of those?
What's that?
Do you know the origin of Bubbles and Bonner?
The Bubbles one is to do with is it to do with, it had Michael Jackson a monkey called Bubbles, wasn't it? I think that's actually what it was, and somehow Bubbles was obsessed with that at the time or something, and they started calling him Bubbles, and that's how it stuck. Bonner then, I think, is reflecting Cormac Bonner, who would have heard for Tip back in the day. He was known as the Viking, and I think that's what kind of Bonner when he was younger, like he was mad about the Bonners growing up. So fairly sure that's what that one is. But anyone else on tip then with nicknames? There's a couple of harmless nicknames. Yeah, like Pádraig Maher is known as the Bear for obvious reasons, and Ronan is known as Baby Bear for obvious reasons. Who else? Cathal Bart is called Bab. You have a few little ones like that, but there's
your own name.
There's not really kind of. I don't have a nickname really with the tip lads. This Bren or Benny like is as much as I have with them, but with the Borris lads, then I'm known as the Kaiser or King. That's just, I suppose, they just kind of be slagging me, like saying, "Oh, here's the King on now," or one of the lads, then Rory Canaan, then decided like that Kaiser sound better, like as a nickname, so he'd always refer to me as Kaiser, but most of the lads then would refer to me as the King. Our Borris team is absolutely flooded with nicknames. I'd say 1 to 15. I could give you nicknames. I'm trying to think what's the best one.
Cleanest.
Our cornerback, our goalie is Sticks. That was a harmless enough one actually. James McCormack, Sticks. There was people used to be calling Lara Corbett Sticks Corbett, and your man used to keep calling Lara Sticks, and he used to use it so much that the lads just started calling him Sticks. Kind of stuck. Yeah. We have Foxy cornerback Seamus Burke. Not sure what that one is from. Paddy the Saint, that comes, I think he's well known anyway. Paddy Stalton that used to play for Tip. And the Drifter is a nice one actually. We had a meeting with a nutritionist years ago, and Drifter was only a young lad, like, and he was as nervous as hell and real shy. And the nutritionist asked him something about what he likes to eat, what's one of his favorite things to eat, and he said a Drifter, like.
He'd have no problem taking that chocolate bar sponsorship.
No, definitely not. And there's not a pick on him. He wouldn't be able to put up weight if he tried.
And if you go through some of your equipment that you use, firstly, boots. What are you, an Adidas man, a Nike man?
I'm an Adidas man, yeah. I had a deal with Puma for a year or two, but I went away from it. I was always Adidas growing up, like, and I loved the Predators and all that. And then I got the offer of Puma, and sure, I was young, and so I was like, "Oh, sure, this is brilliant!" Like, I have a sponsorship deal. I thought it was great, but I didn't like the gear. I didn't like the feel of the boots, so stayed with him for the year. We'll say, did my contract for the year, and went back then to just wearing the Adidas. So I've always been like a Predator man or Copa Mundial, World Cups. I've kind of been through them all. At the moment, I'm wearing the X Predators. They're kind of like. They're not the slip-on ones, but they're the same kind of effect. They're nice and tight, so I like those ones. And
your hurl, who makes it? What size?
Cathal Burke is Burke Sports. Some of you might have heard of him. He does a lot of clothing and gear at the moment, but he's a local here. It's from Borrisoleigh. So 34.5 is the size I use, and the half is very important. I used 34 kind of for a good while, and I kind of felt like I could use a bit of a longer hurley, like, especially as a defender when I was playing in the half back line. I kind of felt like I needed that extra half inch, like, for trying to get in hooks and blocks and that. It felt more right. So I went to 35, and 35 felt too long then. So I got the balance right at 34.5 now. Just feels right. So it's the perfect height for me, for my height anyway. So 34.5 and kind of medium to heavy weight. I wouldn't have a specific weight that I'd use. It's more I just go off feel, like, so I'll be down with him, and he'll sand it up, and he'll let me have a feel of it and say anything you want to change. So I might take a little bit more off the handle, or say don't take a little bit off the boss there. So it can be quite particular, like, but as long as I have them all the same, I won't get the same hurley each time, but when I have a batch together, so when I have my 3 or 4 hurleys, I want them all to feel kind of similar, so that if I do break a hurley, then I'm not, starting off with something new.
And do you feel it up gripped or ungripped?
I feel it ungripped actually, and I'd have one gripped with me, so that I know then, right, well, if this is what it's like ungripped, then the grip will give you that little extra bit on the handle, so that's what it'll feel. I kind of work it like that. But like sometimes, and I've done it before, I'll grip them up and I'll use them for a bit and I won't be happy. So I'll whip the grip off and I go back down and say, you need to round that handle a little more, or, you know, I'm just not happy with that part of it. Or, like I know him very well. He's a great friend of mine. So I'm able to go down. I don't think everyone who buys Hurleys often does that now, but he puts up with me for doing it anyway.
And colour of grip?
White at the moment. Was black all the time growing up. Was always black grip, black tape, and just kind of a few years ago felt like I needed a little bit of a pick me up. I didn't want to go wearing white boots, so I said no, I get the white grip instead.
And how many hurls are you carrying at the minute?
I probably have, I'd say I have 8 or 9 outside there, but like really some of them would be old Hurleys that just kind of I fell out of love with, and they're still there, and I try and, you know, sometimes I might pick one up and see, you know, is it worth getting it sanded down again and having another go at it. But like at the moment now I have 4 Hurleys that, you know, I'm really happy with. But I'd always kind of have a collection there to pick out of every so often. And
helmet, make and colour?
Yeah, white Cooper, was black Cooper up until minor, up until kind of 16 years of age, and then got a white one, and I've only had one since then. But say I had one up until I was about 23 or 4. Got a new white one then again, and I had the same one since. So yeah, I've always been the white Cooper.
Brendan, again, some short answers from here. One player from anywhere that you'd like to add to the tip panel?
That's a tough one. Like, I suppose if I was to go, I'm going to pick a defender and a forward, right? Defender, I'm a big fan of Owen O'Donnell, Dublin. I just think, you know, I love his attitude to the game. And as a forward, then I've had my fair share of battles with him over the last 12 months or 18 months. But TJ, obviously, I just think he's different gravy. Like he's just a player that you'd want on your team, you know. So I go.
All shows up.
Yeah.
Favorite other sport?
Golf.
And who would you follow there on a Sunday evening?
I love seeing Lowry doing well. I've met him a couple of times, and he's so likeable. And I like to see McIlroy do well as well. Any of the Irish lads, like, I like to see them do well. And obviously, Tiger is the main man. Like, if Tiger's there on a Sunday, you just can't, you know, you can't but watch him and enjoy him play.
Who do you admire in public life?
I'm going to go with just recently now, and I wouldn't be into politics at all, but I've really been impressed with Simon Harris over the last while, and I suppose the leadership that he's after showing. And for a young man, like, he's not afraid to come out and speak, and he's made loads of mistakes, but he's human. And, you know, I think he has done more positive than negative. Like, there's loads of people would say, like, oh, well, they should have done this and they should have done that. They didn't. But I just think that the messages he's given out and the way he's kind of standing up to the whole thing, I admire him for that.
And challenges that we face as a society, Brendan, outside of the current situation?
Look, sure, outside of the current situation, I think we've major issues with social interaction. Just like technology and phones are ruining lives, ruining young people's lives, and we're losing the ability to have a conversation, really. And, you know, I'm seeing it in primary schools, and you see it around. I'm sure everyone will see it around their locality. Just, you know, the lack of empathy, I suppose, in young people now, because of video games and that. So I think as a society, we really need to start thinking ahead and think of how we can, you know, start influencing the younger people a little bit better to make sure that, you know, we don't end up in a bad place in another 20 or 30 years.
And Brendan, any changes that you would make to make the country a better place?
I think the housing crisis that we're in at the moment, I'd love to see more support there for people who are struggling. And obviously with what we're in the middle of now, that's only going to get worse. And then, look, I'm involved in it. I think the education system needs a serious revamp. And I just think, you know, there's a lot of aspects of the curriculum that just need to be changed. And I just think, you know, as teachers, I do my job as a teacher, and you know, you have to follow certain things in the curriculum and that. But for me, the role of a teacher is to try and motivate and guide somebody to chase their dreams, you know, and to not be afraid to chase after something that they're interested in. And, you know, if somebody wants to chase a trade and wants to become a tradesman, they should be encouraged to do that if that's their interest. I think there's, you know, that stereotypical approach of, no, you have to go to college and you have to get your degree like this or you won't get a job. I'd like to see a little bit of a different approach to
that. Before I get up to turn on my light, what really gets your goat up, Brendan? What annoys you? What wrecks your head?
Ignorance, and that's interesting from the conversation we were having earlier about me having to be ignorant every so often. But that's why I don't like to do it. I can't bear people being ignorant. Like, you know, it does get my nerves. Like, why are you being ignorant now? Like, you've no reason to, you know, like, perk up a bit and say hello, and, you know, you'd be surprised at the impact you can have by saying hello to someone.
Somebody you know quite well and have met that you find really interesting.
I spoke a little bit about him earlier, and I suppose this question now, I'm going to go back. Like, Eamon O'Shea for me is the man I know really well, and I just find him so interesting. As I said, he sees the game of hurling differently, but he sees the world differently to the rest of us. And I sat with him for a few hours. But I got to pick his brain like for a good 2.5 or 3 hours, and it was the most enjoyable conversation I've ever had with anyone. He's an unbelievable individual.
Brendan, you've been so good with your time. I'm going to wrap it up here with just a few quick fire reactions. So I'm going to call out some names and you give me a response. Conor McGregor.
Muppet.
Mary Lou McDonald.
Eccentric.
Michael O'Leary.
Narcissist.
Ger Loughnane.
Can I go to the same one again?
Which one now, just for clarity?
We'll give him a bit of everything there.
Right, all of the above. Donald Trump.
Oh, Jesus. I don't know. Like, I can't think of a word now. I've used all my good words up.
Keno. Roy.
Machine.
Bono.
Small. I can't think of anything else.
Love Island.
Guilty pleasure.
Glued to it, I'd say.
Yeah.
Midfielder, defence. So one or the other. Midfielder, defence.
Defence.
Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
99 or Cornetto?
99 every day.
O'Gara or Sexton?
O'Gara. I'll stick with the Munster men.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs, 100%.
Tell me about Oscar.
Yeah, he's not here now. I should have brought him in to say hello. Yeah, I've a Hungarian visa, so he's a Hungarian pointer. And I got him October 2018. So it was actually, it was in the middle of my rehab of my knee. It was lovely pick me up to got the old puppy, and he's an unbelievable companion. They call him Velcro Dogs. So they're really attached to their owners, like really loyal to their owners. So like I could go off for a walk now and leave him off the lead, and he won't go anywhere. He'll be by your side all the time.
And you were looking for him for a while.
Yeah, they're a rare enough breed. Like they're quite kind of, you know, if you saw one now, you'd say, God, that's an unusual looking dog. You know, they kind of had that unusual look about them. But he's and would you believe I was looking for ages, and then as it turns out, there was a fella after breeding a litter of him only 20 minutes over the road. So I was delighted to be able to get him, and it all happened kind of out of nowhere. But he's great company. I love dogs. I had dogs growing up, golden retrievers and golden labradors growing up, so I was always used to having a dog. So it was nice to get my own then.
Chicken burger or beef burger?
Beef burger.
Drafts or chess?
Drafts.
25 or poker?
Poker.
Darts or pool?
Pool.
Brendan, I'm going to play one last game with you. Marry, snog or avoid?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But it's not really that. It's who do you want to beat, where do you want to live, and who do you want to play for? Kilkenny, Cork and Limerick.
I live in Limerick. I'll play for Cork and I'll beat Kilkenny.
Brendan, again, thanks so much for your time. I've really enjoyed it. As I said at the outset, I find you really interesting, really humble, and just a really nice guy. So thanks very much for joining us. Hope everybody enjoyed the experience. And just to bring